Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fox News, the Fox News Debate Digital Special here on FoxNews.com. I'm Abby Huntsman, along with Todd Starnes, Charles Payne, Kennedy, and Tom Shalhoub. Well, the gloves came off during tonight's Republican debate, the first one since the big Super Tuesday contest. Four candidates hit the stage this time. Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and John Kasich came out swinging in Detroit. So who dominated the showdown in Motown? Well, here's a look at some of the sparks from tonight's face-off.
He hit my hands. Nobody has ever hit my hands. I've never heard of this one. Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it. I keep hearing that he's the only one that can beat me, but he's getting beaten very, very badly. So where does this come from?
We are not going to turn over the conservative movement or the party of Lincoln or Reagan, for example, to someone whose positions are not conservative, to someone who last week defended Planned Parenthood for 30 seconds on a debate stage, to someone, for example, that has no ideas on foreign, someone who thinks the Nuclear Triad is a rock band from the 1980s.
Oh, yeah.
But guess what? It's now March Madness, and we're heading up north to my turf, okay? And let me just tell you this, I will win Ohio.
This little guy has lied so much about my record.
There we go, the person.
He has lied.
You see what happens again when you challenge him on a policy issue? You asked him about the economy, and the first thing he does is launch an attack about some little guy.
You know, I think the American people understand that yelling and cursing at people doesn't make you a tough guy. Breathe,
Lion Ted.
breathe. You can do it. You can breathe. I know it's hard. I know it's hard, but just...
When they're done with the yoga, can I answer a question?
You cannot. I really hope that we don't see yoga on this stage.
Well, he's very flexible, so you never know.
You laugh out loud on that one.
What a night it has been. I have to say, of all the debates, this one might be the most entertaining one yet. And that's a pretty big statement because we've had some good debates. I'm dying to hear what you guys have to think. Tom, let's start with you. We'll go down the line.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I think that I'm always amazed that Trump, I think this is his weakest forum, the debate. He does great in front of crowds. And when he gets out there, he has that kind of that scowl on his face, and he doesn't lighten it up at all. I know Trump is really funny, so when I see him after these rallies, he's always making me laugh. Outside of that Rosie O'Donnell comment in the first debate, which was hilarious, he doesn't do the comedy as well, so he doesn't lighten it up, and that's what he needs to do. But in any case, it doesn't seem to hurt him because after every debate, his supporters come out and say he won the debate. But this was actually, I think, a stronger one for Donald because it was all about him. I mean, they gave that statistic that all the talk on the internet is about Donald Trump. But this debate, it was either talking to Donald or talking to other candidates about Donald. So whether he had a hard time with some of the details and they went on this long thing on Trump University, it was all about Donald Trump, as today was about Donald Trump. So, again, it helps him.
Or Donald Trump's hands, Kennedy.
It was about Donald Trump's hands, and it's funny because he said that no one has ever commented on his hands. We all know that's not true because Graydon Carter in Spy Magazine called him a short-fingered vulgarian, and Donald Trump, for years, according to Graydon Carter, would send pictures of his hands to Graydon Carter, circled, showing how normally sized they were. So he's very sensitive.
Actually, Kennedy, we have the shot of Trump talking about his hands, if we can play that.
Yeah, let's have a look-see at those digits.
I also happen to call him a lightweight, okay, and I have said that. So I would like to take that back. He's really not that much of a lightweight. And as far as, and I have to say this, he hit my hands. Nobody has ever hit my hands. I've never heard of this one. Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it. All right. Okay.
Well, now.
That's a promise you want every president to keep, isn't it? I mean, we're watching that going, it's so great that nothing is wrong in the world, that, you know, we've solved all the crises in the Middle East, the economy's on the up and up, and civil liberties are as safe as they've ever been in this country. You know, it's not a surprise. I thought that Rubio did what he had to do. In essence, going after him comedically and with energy. I think that he and Cruz tag teamed at certain times, like we saw in that Breathe yoga flexibility exchange. And I think that those kind of exchanges do ultimately have a minimal impact on Trump. It is somewhat of an impact, but they don't necessarily help the people who are attacking him.
Charles, it was pretty clear, though, that Rubio's strategy going in was to go head-to-head with Donald Trump again. We were all kind of talking earlier about what his strategy was going to be. I think we have a clip of Rubio answering the question as to why he decided to go negative, because he talks so much about rising above it, acting presidential. Let's play that.
This campaign for the last year, Donald Trump has basically mocked everybody with personal attacks. He's done so to people that are sitting on the stage today. He's done so about people that are disabled. He's done it about every other candidate in this race. So if there's anyone who's ever deserved to be attacked that way, it's been Donald Trump for the way he's treated people in the last campaign. Now, that said, I would much prefer to have a policy debate. I hope that's what we'll have here tonight. Let's have a policy debate. Let's talk about Donald Trump's strategy and my strategy and Ted's strategy and John Kasich's strategy when it comes to ISIS and on health care and on the important issues facing this country. But let's be honest, too, about all this. The media has given these personal attacks that Donald Trump has made an incredible amount of coverage. Let's start talking again about the issues that matter to this country. I'm ready to do that starting right here, right now.
Rubio's got a point. The so-called earned/free media, once he started that attack stuff, I saw Rubio on TV a whole lot more talking about little hands and all of this stuff. And he wasn't even used to it. I remember
wetting
the first
his
day,
hands.
Yeah, the first day they did it, he was actually like, I got to go to, wait a minute, I'm getting free media? Oh, you know, I think he was ready to go to the next stop. You know, he wasn't even used to all that free stuff. So, listen, I don't think he wanted to go that way. He's all in. This is it. Plus, he's in a desperate situation with respect to Florida. I will say, though, Tom, obviously they're going to attack Trump. He's the front runner. I mean, you know, you spend more time on Trump than Kasich. So I don't know that necessarily makes Trump the winner. You know, to your point, I don't know if this is going to move the needle a lot.
Yeah.
I do think the biggest winner tonight would probably be Hillary Clinton. Some of the things that were said tonight we will hear again between now and November over and over again. The Trump University stuff could start to reverberate a little bit. I thought Rubio hit that pretty good. And then, of course, when Megyn Kelly started asking about it, she had some amazing details, to be quite frank with you, I hadn't even heard yet.
You saw the prosecutor come out. You saw the details come out, and she laid out a case. She had the graphics to back her up. And I think that's really important to do with Donald Trump, because he makes claims and he gets out of things. And if you haven't done your research, it's really hard to refute them in the moment when he shuts you down and says, no, that's not true. As we saw in the CNBC debate, one of the co-moderators didn't have her facts straight on the Facebook question.
Right.
And Donald Trump shut her down, and she apologized, and it turned out that she was right. And Megyn Kelly anticipated that, and she absolutely had the statistic at hand.
I thought the moderators did a really good job, to your point, Kennedy, of pushing him on a number of those issues. One of those was his taxes. He said he doesn't want to release his tax returns. Let's take a little bit of a look at that.
Mr. Trump, your numbers don't add up.
Because of the fact that the pharmaceutical companies are not mandated to bid properly, they have hundreds of billions of dollars in waste. We don't bid properly. We don't have proper bidding procedures. The reason we don't is because they take care of all of the senators, all of the congressmen, and they don't bid. They don't go out to bid.
You say that Medicare could save $300 billion a year negotiating lower drug prices. But Medicare total only spends $78 billion a year on drugs. Sir, that's the facts. You're talking about saving more money on Medicare.
I'm saying saving through negotiation throughout the economy, you'll save $300 billion a year.
Deficit.
And that's a huge, of course it is. We're going to buy things for less money. Of course it is. That works out.
The only money that we buy, the only drugs that we pay for is through Medicare.
I'm not only talking about drugs, I'm talking about other things. We'll save more than $300 billion a year if we properly negotiate.
So, Todd, this was about his tax plan reducing the debt. I thought Fox actually did a phenomenal job here of really putting him in a corner.
Well, you too. Again, it's obvious that Chris Wallace, Bret Baier, and Megyn Kelly all did their homework. They were prepared. They knew how he was going to answer those questions, and they turned it back around and, again, forced him to answer those questions. But look, at the end of the day, I don't think it's really going to matter to any of Trump's supporters, because when they're confronted with the truth, no matter what he says, they could care less. I will say this, though. I want to give credit where credit is due to Mr. Trump. Thank goodness during the hands controversy, he did not whip out a measuring stick.
I don't know where you were going with this.
Yes. Well, I'm a Baptist. I'm not going to go that far.
I would expect Kennedy to come up with that one.
Wow,
I think you saw your notes in the green room.
Can I get a whole fist?
I guess so. I don't know where that fist has been, Todd.
Hey, can I throw something out there, guys?
No phone parties.
Because on my timeline on Twitter, Trump fans were really upset. They felt like it was another gotcha thing. A lot of full screens.
Which part?
A few things with Donald Trump. The first one, to your point, the preparation for the tax thing, the math was already ready for him. Then on the Trump University thing, one of the complainants, I don't know, some people a lot of Trump fans are saying that the Fox moderators, and again, particularly Megyn Kelly, were out to get Donald Trump again tonight.
I think that is fair game. We've seen so many of these debates. You know, we're now in the double digits. And if a candidate is going to go out on the stump and make the same claim day after day after day, I think it's very fair to refute that.
But why no full screens and no mathematics and all that stuff for some of these other guys?
But they did. Remember the last debate, the one that who did not show up at? They did that, and Megyn actually mentioned that. They
had a lot of video in that debate.
They did have video in that debate. So I think it is fair game. And look, and Kennedy's absolutely right. At this stage of the game, we need to start talking about substance here.
He's the front runner. I mean, that is fair game.
Plus, his answers were good. His answers on the tax thing, I thought, were fine. And he said, no, I was talking about more stuff.
Well, the math didn't add up, though, Tom.
Well, he said, I wasn't going to just save money in the drugs. I'm going to save it on other things as well. So in any case, his answers are very simple, but I think he does pretty well with them. And I think he gets... You know, when it's like what's the film with Tom Cruise? You know, You Can't Handle the Truth.
That's A Few Good Men.
That's what Rubio was trying to do to him.
Yeah.
He was like he's like Jack Nicholson, right? It was they keep peppering him.
Yeah.
And he starts to
goading him.
Yeah, and then you remember that point when he called him Little Marco like 3 times in a row?
Like 20 times.
Weird.
Yeah.
It was weird, and it was Trump. He was starting to do the Few Good Men thing. He was starting to lose it. And that's what they were doing to him. But I thought he pretty much kept his cool in this. He was definitely being peppered from both sides.
Yeah.
And I thought the moderators were going at Trump. But I think when he answers the questions, I think he does pretty well with it.
All right, well, this is my question, and I'm wondering what you guys think about this, because Abby and I talked about this on my show today, and it was part of my monologue that Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, if they really want to bring Trump down, they have to get together. And if one of them's not going to drop out of the race, then they have to at least do some debate prep together and say, all right, I'm going to hit him here, you come in from the side. And I said that Ted Cruz was going to be his wingman. Do you think that there was collusion before the debate to get together, and did they choreograph some of those attacks?
I don't think they choreographed the attacks, just like Fox News knew exactly what full screens they had prepared. I mean, to your point, we've done this 10 times. The answers don't change that much. And I think we both understood each person's line of attack. As a matter of fact, Cruz actually sort of stood back early on.
He did.
When I was taking my notes, I had one column for Trump, one for Rubio. I had maybe a sentence for Cruz and nothing for Kasich until it was like, 30 minutes left.
I think they had two very different strategies. Rubio clearly went in wanting to go head-to-head with Donald Trump, and it seemed like Ted Cruz wanted to be more of the presidential figure, the adult in the room. He really did stand back.
He took the high road at one point.
Yeah.
You know, he
for
actually.
About 5 minutes. No.
Yeah, exactly. But I tweeted like, now's the time to drink. Ted Cruz is being fancy and all civil, and he tried to kind of take that away from Kasich, because that's one of the things that especially moderate Republicans cite about Kasich is his temperament, and they like the fact that he's a more measured guy. I was watching Kasich talk about Ronald Reagan, and I think in any other election year that would be a really convincing argument. But in this anti-establishment year, talking about how you laid the groundwork with Reagan, it just reminds people how long you've been in power.
Yeah.
Kasich was in the House of Representatives for 18 years, and now he's the incumbent governor in Ohio, and that's a person who's been in politics for a long time. And although he's got a very gentle way of delivering some tough policies, I don't think he gets free from that establishment tar.
No, I think we have a clip of that, of Kasich talking about his experience, talking about balancing the budget. Let's take a listen to that.
The only person on this stage who actually was the chief architect of balancing the federal budget. It's not a theory for me. In fact, I fought a Republican president who I thought was not offering constructive proposals to fix this economy. So when we talk about all this, there's one person on this stage and one person who's been a candidate for president in either party that restored economic strength, growth, a balanced budget, paid down debt, cut taxes, the things that people in this country want. No theories, reality.
It's interesting. He does talk a lot about his experience, and he does have experience working as governor, you know, in Congress and actually getting things done. But Todd, it seems like the voters don't want to hear it.
No,
or
they
they
really-
just don't care.
They don't, and there's another issue, and he was asked about this issue on religious liberty, and that is a big thing for supporters of Ted Cruz, for example, and quite frankly, some for Marco Rubio, and they just didn't like his response there, and he clarified it a bit, but I'm not quite sure that's good enough for those evangelical Christian voters, and right now that group is splintered. They could go anywhere, and they are going anywhere.
Yeah.
So
Isn't it interesting the way he handled that question? They played from the last debate when basically he said, look, if the gay couple wants a cake, make them a cake. And then they said, do you want to rephrase that? And he said, look, he said, if you're a gay couple and they don't want to make the cake, go to another baker. Like he totally
Yeah, we have that.
gonna say?
We have that sound. Let's play that.
The problem is, in our country, we need to learn to respect each other and be a little bit more tolerant for one another. And at the end of the day, don't go to court. Can't we have common sense in America? That's the way it used to be. And there was a book written called The Death of Common Sense. We need to bring it back. But at the end of the day, if somebody is being pressured to participate in something that is against their deeply held religious beliefs, then we're going to have to think about dealing with it with a law. But you know what? I'd rather people figure this out without having to put another law in the books and have more arguments in this country. Why don't we come together as a country, respect one another, love one another, and lift this country? I think that's what people want.
Kenny, you said that you were watching Kasich during the debate. I was too, in moments when Rubio and Trump were going at it.
Yeah.
And I was watching his face, and I'm just thinking, what is he thinking in this moment? You know, he does in many ways seem like the adult in the room, and he's saying, why am I here?
Here's my problem with this entire election cycle. Everyone on the stage, except for Donald Trump, is behaving as though it's October 2015. You know, they are set so many months back, like they have so much time, and that if they just wait it out, Trump is going to drop out. That's not going to happen.
We're past that.
And with John Kasich, you know, he has a feeling that if everyone just gets sick of the bickering and the yelling and the invective and the fighting, that he's going to be the calm, sensible guy standing there that people will naturally gravitate toward. I don't think he has a path. I don't think there's enough time for him. Even if he wins Ohio, there's absolutely no way that creates enough momentum for him to get the nomination.
VP.
I think he wanted to hug somebody.
Yeah,
I think he wanted to hug somebody at that moment, you know, just to kind of work it out. Look, you know, for me, one of the challenges, and this happened with Trump and with Rubio, the issue was making his shirts and ties wherever in China or wherever. And he said, well, other people do it. You know, what's the big, you know, other people do it. So if your argument is, well, it's okay for other companies to screw the American working man, so I'm going to do it too. Or for example, Rubio, who, you know, they were getting onto him about his behavior, and they said, well, everybody else is doing it. So, you know, take some personal responsibility here.
Right.
And I think that was a big problem with Rubio on Super Tuesday, is people just did not know who they were voting for. Was it choir boy Rubio, or was it the bad boy Rubio talking about Mr. Trump's man parts?
You know, I was an altar boy, and the choir boys, they're never nice. The choir boys, they beat us up.
Oh, they beat up the altar
They
boys?
beat
I
up
didn't
the altar
realize that
boys.
there was a choir boy, altar boy.
We need to do a documentary.
rivalry.
On the Baptist side is the preacher's kids, the same thing.
Okay, but here's the problem with
Devious.
Donald Trump is he can't say it's okay for him or some other companies to have stuff made overseas. I mean, I'm a free trade person. I'm a free market person. I actually think that's okay. I actually think that benefits working people in this country because they have affordable shirts. They can go to Men's Warehouse and get a delightful pair of suits for under $200, which is just fantastic.
But not everyone understands that.
But
though.
having said that, he can't sit here and call out Apple and Ford Motors by name and say that he's going to penalize them 35% for every car they make in Mexico. At some point, it reeks of utter
No,
hypocrisy.
I was shocked. I did not know he was still, at this point, making shirts in Mexico and China.
And defending it.
Yeah, I just find that to be crazy, but it gets back to he can do or say anything, even if it contradicts earlier today. You know, his main statement today was talking about specifically the trade deficits with China and Mexico, how he would change them. And you're right, Abby, people don't understand how that works. And, you know, a trade deficit is just a difference in trade. We sell billions of dollars of stuff to Mexico. So we'd ask companies to stop making and selling that stuff. And to your point, when you go to Costco, that TV that you wanted to buy for $400, maybe $800. Now, maybe we could find a way to deal with that, but it's not as simplistic. And I think it's not even about punishing them. I think it's about regulations here, taxes here, and fees here.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
You get rid of that stuff, and then we're starting to get the level playing field.
But when you say there are a number of people that don't understand, it makes you also wonder bigger picture. When we talk about Trump University, when we talk about Trump releasing his tax returns, do people actually care? Do his supporters actually care about any of this stuff?
Well, that's why I thought that he has this argument of I've started businesses. None of you guys have. I've done the business. So I feel like that's the answer that he should go to, and he doesn't go there enough.
Well, he
should say,
did
look,
tonight with Rubio. I think we had that clip where they go back and forth about
Yeah, he's
who's
like, you've
created
never
jobs.
employed a single person.
Let's take a look at that.
The private sector creates jobs. The jobs of those of us in public service are to put in place policies that allow the economy to grow. That's the problem with the Democratic Party. They think government is what creates jobs. Government does not create jobs.
You haven't employed in your life one
But he
person.
doesn't answer
I've
the
employed
economy
tens of
question.
thousands of people.
You've bankrupted four companies.
You haven't employed one person.
You ever heard of
I mean, Tom, how effective is that?
I mean, I think it's very effective, and I think he should have used it on Trump University. He should have said, look, it's a small case. It's one thing that I did. All of these other businesses have done well, et cetera. And I don't want to talk about Trump University. It's, this is what you always do. When something is in court, you say, I can't talk about it. It's pending litigation.
Yeah.
But he went into the details, and he talked about whether he got a D or an A. That was a mistake.
I think that was a mistake. I think you're absolutely right. And that's part of the reason that he can't be so spontaneous in debates is because he's anticipating where the shrapnel's coming from.
Yeah.
He has to anticipate the barrage, and he has to stay focused and keep his head clear. And I think that's not a comfortable place for him. Someone was making the case earlier this week that he shouldn't have gone to the debate, not because of Megyn Kelly, but because there is actually not as much upside for him in the debate. He's not as good of a debater. He's not as adept. And there was so much focus on him tonight, which I actually think is appropriate because I don't think you owe John Kasich equal time when he doesn't have an equal number of delegates.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point.
But at the same time, this is what gets me about Donald Trump. I mean, they basically said that he hangs around Mar-a-Lago wearing a bed sheet and a pointy hat, burning crosses in the backyard. And this would destroy any other candidate, but not Donald Trump. His numbers go up. It's just unbelievable. And so, again, I don't think he can say anything at this point that's going to hurt him. I think he's on the path to
I mean, Tom, you're a
more
comedian. I
victories.
mean, you get away with saying a lot of things that I could
Filthy,
never get away
foul.
with saying.
Can you do a couple for us now?
Is there anything that Trump could possibly say, to your point, that could have a negative impact on him?
No, it's
unbelievable.
He's full of vaccinations. He's inoculated himself because he said all the shocking things that could be said. He said them, as a media star for the past 10 years, and then he kept on saying them during the campaign.
And at the launch of his campaign. I mean, think about what he said when he launched his campaign.
Yeah, and I mean, so obviously that's what people like about him, so that's fine. And he will even say, I mean, when, what was the quote? Vicente Fox used the F word, and he said, if I ever use that word, I would be thrown out of town. Of course, he's used the word about 8 times, and someone made a video, and they showed the cuts of him saying it over and over again. I think he likes people watching that video, because why would he say, I've never said that word, when he said it many times, and you can make a video, because it's another video that people can look at of him. It's amazing.
Can we?
Although I will say, guys, to this thing is that, there are a lot of Republicans who say that the hashtag Never Trump was trending all weekend. It's still trending pretty strong. I do believe that the lack of enthusiasm on Hillary Clinton's side could be solved if this KKK stuff kind of stays out there. She can get the kind of turnout that she wouldn't have gotten otherwise, certainly from blacks and from some Hispanics, if they keep playing this, particularly if Republicans keep saying it. If she put out a montage of Mitt Romney, all these Republicans saying that over and over again, and said, if you guys don't come out to vote, this is what's waiting for you.
Oh, she will. She's going to put out anything that takes the pressure off the indictment. And she got 80% of the black vote.
And Trump is going to help her, too. If I was him, I would have resolved it only because, you know what, she's going to say, yeah, I got this email thing. It was a mistake. And this guy's, defrauded people, the poor people of their life savings.
All right, we got to start.
It's an active issue. You're absolutely right. He could have put it together. It would be a non-issue, but it's still actively going.
And it will continue, I think. We have a shot of Rubio talking about why he doesn't think voters are going to support Trump. Let's listen to this.
2/3 of the people who have cast a vote in a Republican primary or caucus have voted against you. They do not want you to be our nominee. And the reason why is because We are not going to turn over the conservative movement or the party of Lincoln or Reagan, for example, to someone whose positions are not conservative, to someone who last week defended Planned Parenthood for 30 seconds on a debate stage, to someone, for example, that has no ideas on foreign, someone who thinks the nuclear triad is a rock band from the 1980s, to someone who time and again on issue after issue has not proven that he has the principles that outline what the conservative movement has been about, and as Ted said, the things that made America great. America is great because of the conservative principles of limited government and free enterprise and our strong national defense, and our nominee needs to be someone that stands by those things.
All right.
Donald has not demonstrated that.
My favorite moments these debates when you have the split screens, most awkward faces. I mean, it's so entertaining.
Yeah, and mouth nuggets.
The mouth nuggets. But this brings us to Mitt Romney, because he was a big part of the narrative today. And
I thought he was in the debate. What was he scheduled to be in the debate?
I think he would have liked to.
He had his
I didn't
own.
know.
I think he would have liked to have been, but I think it was just a reminder of how freaked out the establishment is about Trump becoming the nominee. And Romney, I mean, you guys tell me what you thought, but him speaking today, it was less about supporting anyone that was running and almost hoping like he could be the one to come and save the day, save the Republican Party from Donald
There's
Trump.
no doubt, without saying, hey, I hope there's a brokered convention, he more or less laid out the blueprint for a brokered
You
convention.
vote
by
for
saying-
each of them in their home states.
Or wherever they're doing well enough to
Right.
beat Donald Trump.
And then I'll come in.
Right, so this is like, he actually asked for collusion on the air.
He
He's
did.
like, I want us to collude in every place you go to anti-Trump. This way, no one will have
Right.
enough delegates.
It's amazing.
And perhaps someone will have to wink, ride in on that great white horse.
But that's exactly what he's saying. And I thought he was talking about committing voter fraud, because Mitt Romney today in his
Exactly.
speech said, well, I would vote for John Kasich in Ohio. I would vote for Marco Rubio in Florida.
Right.
And I'm thinking, are you registered in all these places? Because that
But
seems
tell me,
wrong.
if you're Rubio, are you not pissed off? Because he almost made
Language,
it sound
Abby.
like, would he be upset? Because here he is saying Rubio's not strong enough to do the speech
Absolutely.
that I'm giving.
Yes, but Rubio knows that. I mean, everybody knows that. And so Mitt Romney shouldn't have done it. I think it was ridiculous. It was bad for Mitt Romney because I think it made him look petty, and it's weird. At this point, all these other candidates stood up and they said, no, if he's the nominee, we'll support him. Well, why didn't Mitt Romney say that today? He basically said the opposite of that today, that he was going to pull some shenanigans. The thing is, the Republican Party can do what it wants. They can do like they used to, and they can have a brokered convention. That's the way, history says that's been done. They used to have the smoke-filled room. They had the party bosses. So if they want to go back to that, they can, but they don't want to. So just don't pretend you're going to do that.
But what an insult to the millions of people who have voted for a
Huge.
candidate.
Exactly. No, exactly.
If you think people are upset now, imagine what would happen if all of a sudden, Rubio doesn't win very many states. Rubio doesn't get very many delegates, but somehow he emerges from the convention as the nominee.
Right.
I mean, that is, imagine the ill will. That would be the death of the party.
Yeah.
And if that's
And the
Republicans-
democracy, frankly.
Well, and if that's the Republicans' big strategy, then they have failed as a
every
party.
GOP
The
bigwig-
establishment is dead.
Every GOP bigwig I talk to who comes to my show and I ask, they say, listen, we all know what the delegate count is. If someone doesn't have it, this is the way, this is the rules. And essentially what they're saying is what some of these candidates are saying. Trump is winning, but he's not winning the majority. He hasn't had over 50% in any state. There are a lot of Republicans who are not voting for him. They also have a voice. They're not parading in the street, and that somehow the party bosses ultimately should fix it. We know, of course, there would be riots, and it would be the end of the GOP, although this might be the end of the GOP as we know it anyway.
Yeah.
And listen to how they're phrasing it. Listen to how they're framing the narrative here, though. The establishment elite, they're basically saying that these folks who are supporting Donald Trump are stupid. You guys don't get it. You're being conned. You're being snookered. That's what I'm not sure what the word Romney used earlier today. But look, I represent these folks. I'm from the gun-toting, Bible-clinging, bitter America crowd that President Obama talked about. And these folks have very deep-seated hatred at the Republican Party. They're so tired of these folks campaigning as conservatives, and then when they get to Washington, they hang out with the liberals.
It's been building for some time, and there's a concern among the establishment that he is conning his supporters on immigration on one of the issues, actually. And they want these New York Times, the op-ed, the off-the-record thing, kind of confused, but they wanted to come out. They talked about it a bit tonight. Let's look at that.
I did have a meeting with the editorial board of the New York Times, a very nice meeting. Many of those things were off the record, I think at their suggestion and my suggestion. And I think being off the record is a very important thing. I think it's a very, very powerful thing. And I will say this, these three gentlemen have gone off the record many times with reporters, and I think they want to honor it. And I would always honor that. I will say, though, in terms of immigration and almost anything else, there always has to be some, tug and pull and deal.
Tom, I'm not sure what he's trying to say there. I'm a little lost.
Well, I think he was saying two things. One was, I'm not going to spill, I'm going to respect the off-the-record situation. And two was...
Which is fair.
Yes. And two was, if I said something about negotiation, there's always going to be negotiation, but I wasn't saying that what the charge was, which was that Trump doesn't stand behind, his rhetoric.
Yeah.
So he was doing both of those things. Who was the person? Was it Gail, the person at the Times who leaked, who said, who's the columnist? Do we know who did it?
BuzzFeed.
It was BuzzFeed? I thought it was someone at the Times, though.
Well, someone at the Times must have leaked it to BuzzFeed, but it's a BuzzFeed
But they
story.
suggested, that columnist suggested that, that he may not be as tough on immigration as he's saying.
But here's the thing, the fact that I feel like we are all pretty well versed in politics, the fact that we're trying to wrap our heads around this, the average American voter, Trump supporter, are they even following this?
No.
No.
But they are really riding this. Both of those guys were like, and this is the thing that Ted Cruz was on all night. Release the tapes, release the tapes. He thinks that's something he's going to be able to run on, but I don't think.
I know, but it's like the tax returns. I really don't think that's going to do anything. But I think, Todd mentioned this earlier, and it's personal responsibility. And this is so incredibly critical because Donald Trump has been talking so hard and so objectively about immigration. We're going to build a wall. We're going to deport 11 million people. And he talks about as tough as you possibly can on immigration. And then he gives himself this wiggle room. It's this new line about flexibility, which kind of gives you the ultimate license to flip-flop because he doesn't have a voting record, which is one of the things that sets him apart from other people.
And helps him.
And that is your blueprint to your ideology, essentially. And if you are unmoored, untethered from an ideology, then you can't have that kind of wiggle room and not be totally hypocritical.
Well, I want to play that flexibility style because I do think that was actually a very strong moment for Donald Trump in the debate. Let's play that.
I've never seen a successful person who wasn't flexible, who didn't have a certain degree of flexibility. You have to have a certain degree of flexibility. You can't, for instance, let's say on the second question, you can't say it's okay, and then you find out it's not okay, and you don't want to do anything. You have to be flexible because you learn.
Tom just said he had a really good point.
I just thought of it. When you think of a good point and you file it away, usually you don't say it out loud, but I just said, I have a good point. Donald Trump, it's the art of the deal. He's a negotiator. He's putting out his principles. He's saying we're going to build the wall. We are going to deport people. The people who like Donald Trump, the average, the union workers, the people he's trying to pull in, they know. Union workers know what their union bosses do. They make demands, and then they go in and they negotiate it away. Joe Lunchpail knows you talk tough, and then you get in the negotiating room. And those are the people who like Trump, and they know. And they're saying, everybody shut up. I know he's going to back off on the wall. But I like a guy who goes into the room talking tough like my union boss does. Isn't that a good point?
But also, and yes, that's a very good point. And there are two things there. One is they want someone who really believes that. And it's much easier to shout about the wall than to actually build the wall. But people, feel emotionally married to his intentions. The other thing is you're absolutely right about union workers. Union bosses will go for Hillary Clinton. Union workers will, by and large, go for Donald Trump. And those are the people that he's speaking to. And that's the coalition that he is trying to create.
But Todd, isn't this the message that Kenny's speaking to that people are wanting right now? Because they feel like in Washington, nothing is getting done. And here Donald Trump is saying, I make deals. I'm flexible. I get along with people. This is exactly what we need right now.
I think so. And then to the point of personal responsibility tied into that. Ted Cruz came under a lot of fire for dirty tricks in Iowa. And so what happened? He tried to make amends. Half a dozen apologies to Ben Carson. Then he fired some guy from the campaign.
He even sent him an edible arrangement, which I thought was lovely.
Really? Shared it with him in that closet.
I don't like those. They got the cantaloupe. Not a big fan of the cantaloupe. But it's
unless it's chocolate dipped.
Well, that's
no
true.
Comment.
But I think tonight Ted Cruz looked presidential up there. I think that he sort of held himself above the fray, didn't get involved in all the shenanigans, and I think he had some great answers. And I thought the best thing that Ted Cruz responded to was the destruction of the cities by the liberal governments.
Yeah.
And he really got a lot of response from the audience on that.
That was great, and I love that answer. But I will get back to the idea that Donald Trump supporters know Donald Trump won't live completely up to the promises he's making, and that makes him the politician that he's railing against in the first place. So I don't necessarily agree with that. And I don't think it's the wall. I think whatever's hidden in this New York Times piece, the wink part of it, has to do with the deportation, because that is really tough.
Yeah.
It is really tough to round up 11 million people and ship them out of this country. I know I'll get a few
Splitting
tweets
up
saying it's not
families
hard, E-Verify, this, that. It really is really tough, because I'd rather be
Well, Mitt Romney
I'd rather
said
have
you
no
could just
job
bust them out.
I'd rather have no job in America than to go back to Guatemala. Me personally, you couldn't get me to voluntarily leave this country. And if I was homeless on the street right now with a bag and a dog, you could not get me to leave this country, period. So it's going to be a lot.
That's a great
it's going to
point.
be harder to do it. But having said that, you know, Megyn Kelly also talked to him about it. And, you know, some people may think that she baited him in there on the whole flip-flop thing, because she ran those 3 pieces with Afghanistan, the migrant crisis, and Bush lied. And saying, well, you know, he keeps saying he's a deal maker. So again, are you wedded to the things you are promising people? Because they are foaming at the mouth. They want this, and they want it now.
But you know, another thing, earlier today I was in North Atlanta, in an area that has just been devastated by these illegals that were coming in, working in the carpet mills up there, working in the farms, and really hurting those communities. I also have a lot of listeners.
How does work hurt communities?
Well, these illegals were coming in, and the locals were not able to get jobs. So, I mean, this was, and again, paying low wages, whatever. Then in Indiana, you've got those folks, the Carrier and the other company that are going south of the border. A lot of folks out of work. The only person that's really been speaking about that and talking about that has been Donald Trump.
Sure.
He's been the guy that's out there voicing that. And I'm really perplexed as to why Cruz and Rubio aren't jumping on that, because that's something that really resonates with the American working man. Nobody's looking out for us but this Trump guy.
Well, they're also not doing a good job of making the case how government has to get out of the way, and how government, you know, we talk about taxes, we talk about regulations, simplifying the tax code is part of it, but marry that to small business. You know, talk to small business owners and people who want to start small businesses, and the cost of compliance that's killing them.
Massive.
Gets back to fees, regulation, tax. Rubio did hit Trump over and over again. He said, you make your clothes overseas and you hire from overseas. He didn't say what he would do, but he tried, to your point, he tried to twist it. But I will also tell you, I say this all the time, I think it's almost a moot point, because in America, we pay so many able-bodied people, particularly men, not to work. We pay them not to work. I remember a few years ago when Alabama instituted the toughest immigration law in the country. About 24, 48 hours before, everyone disappeared, illegal and legal immigrants. And you had the catfish farmers, you had factory owners. They were calling the governor, what's up? Now, I was down there visiting my mom at the time, and I was riding the bike. It was hot as hell, too, so I wasn't riding far. But
You were looking good.
I was in that Alabama sun, man. I've been in New York too long. But I mean, I'm riding by porches, and there's like 20 people on a porch listening to a boombox, and I'm like, what the hell? And the factory is empty. Something is wrong with this picture. We're not going to cure illegal immigration until we stop paying people not to work.
Well, you know what? That has been one of the biggest challenges, though, for Marco Rubio, has been immigration. And yet, originally, that was supposed to be his big issue. He was supposed to own that. And now we're in a situation where no one really knows where he stands on it. He spoke about it tonight, sort of clarifying it. Let's listen to that.
I absolutely want to solve this issue. And I did the best we could in a Senate that was controlled by liberal Democrats and Harry Reid, in the hopes that the House, made up of conservatives, would take it up and make it even stronger. And I said that repeatedly at the time. I'm not just saying that now. I said it throughout that process. We do need to deal with this issue. When I'm president, it will not be dealt with the way it was done in the Senate. It'll be done first and foremost by bringing illegal immigration under control and proving it to the American people. And only after that is done can anything else happen.
What Marco said is, I understand it. He's talking about a little give and take and a little negotiation. And you know what? That's okay. That's not the worst thing in the world. There's nothing wrong with that. I happen to be much stronger on illegal immigration.
I don't think Rubio had any sense as to how big of an issue this would be in this campaign cycle, and how torn he would be on where he even stands.
Can I make a bold prediction right now?
That's so unlike you, Kennedy.
I know, I understand that. When President Obama ascended to office and he had a Democratic Congress, they very easily could have passed immigration. You know, and you can make the argument that there was so much infighting within the Democratic Party
agreed.
that they weren't able to come to any agreement. Look at the chasm that we have in the Republican Party in this country, and you look at the various factions who are right now busy bloodying each other. If you have a Republican president and a Republican Congress, I guarantee you they're not going to pass comprehensive immigration reform. They're just not.
I think that's a great point and a bold one.
Of course, that's what you said there would be.
But I think it's a good one. I mean, another, I think, strong moment tonight in the debate was Ted Cruz trying to hit Trump on not being a conservative, saying he's been changed his mind over the past 40 years, been strong on a lot of liberal issues as well. Let's take a look at that.
One of the great disconnects of all the people, all of the voters, I understand the folks who are supporting Donald right now. You're angry at Washington, and he uses angry rhetoric. But for 40 years, Donald has been part of the corruption in Washington that you're angry about. And you're not going to stop the corruption in Washington by supporting someone who has supported liberal Democrats for 4 decades, from Jimmy Carter to John Kerry to Hillary Clinton. You're not going to stop the corruption and the cronyism by supporting someone who has used government power for private gain.
It is so interesting, though, Tom, to think that this is the front runner this time, supported Hillary Clinton in 2008.
Well, I mean, I think he gets out of it. He does pretty well by saying, look, I was a businessman. I paid this guy, I paid that guy. I mean, he basically says, I was corrupt. I was part of the system. So that's his answer. And I think it's a pretty good answer. You know, and that's why they can, the Hillary stuff, that's what gets them. They can say, oh, you used to be a liberal, you were a businessman. But I think when we tie him to Hillary Clinton, that is a little more sensitive. And it wasn't that long ago that he was writing her checks. I mean, it wasn't back in the 90s.
Well, and these two are also friends, which I think would make for a fascinating general election because it would get personal. And he knows things about Hillary Clinton that many of us don't know. He spoke to that a little bit tonight. Let's look at it.
The choice Republican primary voters are making is who is best prepared to stand up to Hillary Clinton and beat Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump has written checks to Hillary Clinton not once, not twice, not 3 times, 10 times. And 4 of those checks were not to her Senate campaign. It wasn't that she was the New York senator and it was a cost of doing business. It was to her presidential campaign. Donald Trump in 2008 wrote 4 checks to elect Hillary Clinton as president. So I'd like to ask Donald, why did you write checks to Hillary Clinton to be president in 2008? It wasn't for business.
So Trump's response to that, I thought, was actually a pretty good one, saying the last face that Hillary Clinton would want to see in a general election is Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, well, you know, listen, that's exactly what he's going to say.
It's the first face she wants to see when she wakes up in the morning. So handsome.
He is. And he's got great hands.
Geez.
Great hands.
You know, again, this stuff has been out there, and the Trump supporters understand it, but there are a core. You know, I think one of the narratives today that's starting to evolve here is that somehow if you're not for Trump, you're establishment. And that is wrong, and I've heard people in the media, even today, he's saying that anti-Trump means your establishment, because there are a core group of people, Republicans, conservatives, religious conservatives, and fiscal conservatives, people who believe in an old school definition of conservatism who are not for Donald Trump for this kind of reason. And I don't think they're going to come around.
But when did the establishment become like this bad word?
That's the big issue. And not just the word establishment, but also evangelical. Donald Trump has effectively redefined what that word means. You know, he said that he's never had to ask for forgiveness. Well, that is a central component of being an evangelical Christian.
I wish I had that.
Well, what
you
percentage,
were saintly,
Todd?
Abby. You don't need forgiveness for anything.
Well,
what percentage, Todd, would you say of evangelicals that insist that the candidate be in their heart the way that they are? And what percentage would you say, I don't really care what's in his heart, I care what he does so I can live my life and in my community with my family?
I think that has always been a smaller percentage. I think but again, evangelicals did not get out to vote for Mitt Romney, and there was a lot of speculation that had to do with his Mormon faith. But here, this is something very different, and I think you've got such a large block of those evangelicals who are supporting Trump, not because they get it. They go, yeah, we know this guy doesn't go to Sunday school. We know this guy, isn't involved in the Wednesday night church suppers. But we don't care because we think he's going to protect us. You know, we don't think he's going to like outlaw Christianity. So we're going to go ahead and vote for this guy and give him a pass. And that's why you have folks like Jerry Falwell Jr. and Dr. Robert Jeffers. But I got to tell you something, those guys are catching a lot of heat from a lot of other evangelicals who will not vote
I think Rubio actually
got
more votes in Jerry Falwell Jr.'s district than Donald Trump did.
He did.
Yeah. And you know what? I think one of the ways I've read it, Tom, is that it's been broken down to people who go to church religiously, no pun intended, and those who believe in God and see themselves as evangelicals but aren't regular churchgoers. They lean Trump. The other ones don't. That's the way I've seen it.
Okay, but here's how I think it breaks down, and it's very simple. People are hurting financially. People are struggling.
They are.
And when people are hurting financially, their families are hurting. And people have been hurting for a long time. And here's someone who actually might make that better. And that means that people will have more flexibility. They'll have more mobility. They'll be happier. There will be harmony. Yeah. And when people are happy and harmonious and rich, guess what they do? They go to church. And they give a bunch of money.
No, Kennedy, I think that is spot on. I think people are so sick of the status quo and they want anything other than that. And what Trump has done, I think, so brilliantly, other than, I think, marketing his campaign well. You know why he's running. He's running to make America great again. You can't say that for every candidate. You don't know why they're all running. What he's also done is he's been just so authentic. And I think people find that very refreshing, that he's someone that just kind of is who he is. He says, you know what, I have been successful. And you know what? I wish everyone was also successful. And if you were, you'd probably live just like I lived, where Romney had a really hard time doing that 4 years ago.
That's exactly right.
And people didn't relate to that.
Exactly right. And Abby, I'm so glad you said that, because as I was watching Mitt Romney today give his speech, I was like, here's a guy who never owned his wealth and success. Here was someone who was so out of touch and apologetic for that, whereas Donald Trump is, he's like Diddy.
He's like, yeah, I have a plane.
Yeah, he's like, I have a plane and I want you to have a plane.
I want you to have a plane and you want one too.
I used to scream. I would come on TV every day. I mean, back of the napkin, the companies that Bain Capital helped, not invested in, but just seed money, because they were involved in a lot, starting with Staples. Mitt Romney and other workers at Bain Capital actually went into the first Staples and helped stock the shelves. Even when brick and mortars right now are getting hammered, they employ 79,000 people. At their peak, it was maybe 250,000 people. Imagine that story. That's jobs that he put up money for.
We didn't hear that.
Exactly. I mean,
we heard that at the 2012 convention. We actually did. We heard that exact story.
But we should have heard it every single time he opened his mouth. I did it back of the envelope.
Really rich.
You know what I did one
Trump
day?
said, I'm rich. I'm really rich.
No, but not that he's rich. I like the idea is that he empowered others. You said jobs. He created jobs. I did back of the envelope. I just took 3 companies from Bain. I think it was Staples, the Sports Authority, and one other. And I calculated how many were in Chicago. And I multiplied them by how many people worked there. And I said, just there alone, in Barack Obama's hometown, he had created something. He could have taken responsibility for like 5,000 to 10,000 jobs. In that town alone, he never talked about it.
Except the binder. He got stuck with the binders. He got stuck with these are the people that got fired because
the
of
dog on the roof.
Yes.
And do you remember?
Oh, that's a great story.
And do you remember the Netflix documentary that came out after the election? I mean,
yeah, it was very real. It was very relatable.
You know, I think if people had seen that beforehand, that might have swayed a few votes.
And today's speech was tougher than anything he did during the election. Today's speech was tougher on Trump than he ever was on Obama.
Where was that guy back in 2008?
Ridiculous.
He put it in neutral after the first debate. So the consultants say you want it, now put it in neutral.
Yeah,
because you don't want to offend maybe the women. You know
what? You know what though? This is so important. You got to play your own game.
You do.
And I think that if there's one lesson we can take away from this election, it's not that you have to attack people. It's not that you have to taunt people with middle school insults. It's that you have to play your own game and be an authentic person. And we can take that from Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. And I think the public is better served by it. I think politicians are better served when they are themselves, because you get these vanilla candidates over and over and over again.
I think it's a wake-up call.
Yeah.
It's a real wake-up call in terms of how people are, how voters, how real people are feeling in this country. As you said, they just want a job.
Yeah.
They just want a better life. And they're so sick of what's been going on. There was an interesting moment towards the end of the debate where Cruz and Rubio and Kasich were asked if they would support Donald Trump if he were the nominee. And here's what happened.
I'll support the Republican nominee.
Mr. Trump, yes or no?
I'll support Donald if he's the Republican nominee. And
Yes, because I gave my word that I would. And what I have endeavored to do every day in the Senate is do what I said I would do.
Yeah, and I kind of think that before it's all said and done, I'll be the nominee. But let me also say, if he ends up as the nominee, sometimes he makes it a little bit hard, but, you know, I will support whoever is the Republican nominee for president.
I mean, this was very interesting, and it makes you realize that we really could see a Donald Trump nominee.
Yeah, and I think that Kasich, the more interesting comment he made was he says, I'm not going to bite when they asked him to criticize Trump. They asked him, they tried to get him to go after Trump. I forget what the question was, but he said, I'm not going to bite, and he got applause for that. I think Kasich would be a great pick for VP for Trump because you always have that VP who's the attack dog. He doesn't need an attack dog.
No.
He needs a nice, soft, cuddly dog, and that's what Kasich can be for him, plus he's Ohio.
He's got real experience.
He needs to be the reasonable one that people all over the world can call him and think, oh, John,
thank
God
Trump.
I got you on the phone.
Yeah, he's already got Christie to be another, you know, tough guy.
I don't know what Christie
I know,
is
but
these
you know,
days, though.
Christie's more of the
Attorney
Trump, the
General
bombast.
or something.
But I think
No, Chris Christie is Attorney General?
I'm sure that's what he's hoping for.
But he just swore today, he said, I'm going to serve out my term, which would, you know, he couldn't take the job right away if he...
Yeah, no, I think Christie's. I mean, Christie has this, you know, the hug with Obama. This thing he's got
Jerry
to go to,
Jones.
You know, he's got to go to every Bruce Springsteen concert. I mean, just if he admires you, man, forget about it. It's like he was like the dude at school, man. You look around like, yeah, my man, I know I ate lunch with you today, but we're not best friends. And every time you look around, it's like,
No, go home,
You're like, oh
Chris,
man,
go
it's Chris again. Damn, how did I get away from
He's
this
a
dude?
stalker. That's a really good point. And how about Chris Christie during Trump's press conference, just staring at the back of his head? Okay, one of my favorite moments, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, was when Donald and Ted were going at it, and Donald's getting worked up, and Ted's telling him to breathe, and then, of course, Marco pipes in. Do we have that? I think we do.
This is the man that was the primary supporter. And you can read Law Journal, you can read whatever you want to read. I've read plenty of it. There was no stronger supporter of John Roberts than him, and it was a very, very big mistake.
Quickly, Senator Cruz.
You know, Donald has a tenuous relationship with the truth. I wrote one op-ed supporting President Bush's nomination after he made it. I would not have made that nomination. But let me point out,
Not what you
Donald
say in the
actually
op-ed.
cared
That is
about,
not what you said in the op-ed.
Donald, please, I know it's hard
Yeah,
not
I know
to
it is,
interrupt,
but it's not what you
try.
said in the op-ed.
Breathe,
Lion
breathe,
Ted.
breathe. You can do it. You can breathe. I know it's hard. I know it's hard, but just...
When they're done with the yoga, can I answer a question?
You
for him?
cannot. I really hope that we don't see yoga on this stage.
Well, he's very flexible, so you never know.
Oh, gee.
And there they were working together. There they were, you know, a couple of jackals trying to bring down the lion.
They're like children.
It was good, though. Good for Rubio. He is quick on his feet. He never did that before. He did used to just repeat.
Certainly didn't do that with Christie.
No.
You're right. He is much better when he's not memorizing his lines and talking really fast, when he's just himself.
Yeah.
And he does breathe, as Cruz is reminding everyone to do there. He is, I think, a much better version of himself there.
Yeah. Although I thought he was a little bit of the you know, nipping
Yappy,
at, yeah,
chihuahua.
he was nipping at Trump's heels a little too much, interrupting, and you know, I don't think he came off well, especially in the first half of the debate, but you know, he's having trouble anyway.
When we started, I put a little poll. I asked people who won the election on Twitter. And so right now, Cruz is at 37%, Trump at 36%, Rubio at 14%, and Trump's hands at 13%.
Wow.
You know who's got big hands and long fingers? John Karate Chop Kasich. I mean, he's always
does?
gesticulating. Yeah, but he's got the...
Well, Kasich, I thought he did have a number of strong moments tonight, whether people were listening or not. And he's really hoping for Ohio. That's obviously in about a week and a half on March 15th.
I think he and Chrissie Hynde both have the same odds there.
But he talked about how important that state is just up north of Michigan. Let's listen to that.
I beat Hillary Clinton by more than anybody, by 11 points. And the reason it happens...
In one poll. In one poll.
You know, the reason is because, as the Democrats tell me all the time, I can get the crossover votes. The simple fact is that, you know, you all wrote me off. You wrote me off before I even got to New Hampshire. Then when I finished second in New Hampshire, you wrote me off in the South. Then you wrote me off in Super Tuesday. It's now March Madness, and we're heading up north to the place, to my turf, okay? And let me just tell you this. I will win Ohio, and I am going to move all across this country.
You know, First of all, for a split moment there, even though Ben Carson wasn't there, the spirit of Ben Carson jumped into him, right? You all wrote me off. I was like, hold on, wait a minute. That's the old Ben Carson line right there. Yeah, he's got to win Ohio, but right now he's polling in dead last in Michigan. And that is worrisome. If he's going to sweep the Rust Belt, the Rust Belt in the North, you got to poll a little bit better in your neighboring state. So I don't know. I agree with you, Tom. I really believe that Chris Christie was angling for VP when he attacked Rubio in New Hampshire. I believe Huckabee was angling for VP when he left the Fox debate and went over to the Trump debate. And I believe Kasich is angling for VP as well.
So is it game over? I mean,
For
at this
John
point,
Kasich?
No, I mean, for all of them. It seems like the writing's on the wall that if Trump ends up winning Florida, where he's way ahead there, if he wins Ohio, these are winner-take-all states.
Yeah, he wins those. It's all she wrote.
Yeah, but I mean, you still have several races which are very competitive. And, even if he gets 35, 40% of the vote, he still doesn't get the other 60%. He has it all now, but I still think that this is an active contest, and I still think he has work to do. Is he beatable? I don't think he's beatable by these guys necessarily, but yeah, I do think
There's three letters that helped Trump the most. It's EGO. All these other guys have these big egos. Jeb Bush should have gotten out sooner. No, honestly,
I forgot about Jeb Bush. I haven't heard that name in a while.
Think about this. I know Rubio's got to be sitting there like, if Bush and Kasich got out before South Carolina, I might have won that. I might have won Virginia. I might have won Arkansas. He'd be looking a whole lot different right now. I mean, it's always hindsight and revisionist stuff, but if there's a so-called establishment, a bunch of guys with cigars making the rules, they've lost. They don't have any influence because they would have called these guys in a long time ago.
Absolutely right.
And they'd have said, you're going to be the nominee or pick a straw.
And Todd, they're kind of freaking out right now.
Well, they are. And what is the next step? What is Romney going to do next? Is he going to do anything? I think there's something else coming. And again,
I think there's stuff behind the scenes going on with Romney and his team.
Let's say that Rubio does lose Florida. You've still got Cruz there. Lindsey Graham actually said, I know last week he wanted to take him out, with an assassin's bullet. But now he says, you know what, we may need to rally around this guy. Will the establishment rally around Ted Cruz?
Talk about the ultimate odd couple, huh?
I don't see the establishment rallying around.
See, I don't either. I don't either.
No. I honestly think they'll figure out a way to run someone third party.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the other question, is a third party. If it ends up being Trump as the nominee going against Hillary.
I don't think that's their plan. I think Romney he's going to go to the line. He thinks he can keep this up to the convention. They're going to try to keep the never Trump alive, which won't be fatal to Trump, but it's enough so that if he does something, I mean, obviously Trump could melt down. Something could happen. A disaster could happen. After he's already, won a bunch of victories and is on his way, something bad could happen. You never know with Trump. And so Romney could be there to clean up the mess. He so regrets that he was scared. Can you imagine? He was scared away by Jeb Bush. He was going to run, and Jeb Bush raised $100 million, and Romney just went into hiding. He regrets
at a
that.
brokered convention, that may not be good for the party longer term.
That's not good for the party. It's not good for Americans.
Divided.
But it will be a
People will
fun
give
party
up on
itself,
the process. You will lose an entire generation to apathy if you give in to that emotional drive to split up the party.
But does the party, Charles, have to hit rock bottom for it to win again?
I think a lot of people feel in certain respects that this midterm election was a sort of rock bottom, even though because they won. And this was the final straw. It hit rock bottom with the voters already. And this is why we're seeing this. And the establishment had the most amazing glaring red flag and didn't pay attention. When Dave Bratt beat Eric Cantor.
Absolutely right. All the money in the world couldn't save him.
That's when those cigar chopping folks should have gotten together and said, yo, did you guys see this?
That was a wake-up call. Never mind Citizens United.
That was the ultimate wake-up call, and they still, you know why? Because of arrogance. And people say, well, why are these people doing all these things so late? Because they've been arrogant throughout the entire process.
But they're still arrogant. They're still arrogant when they can look at the map and they can see the election and those blue-collar voters, the rural voters coming out for Trump, and look at Romney's map when the blue-collar voters stayed home.
When they look in their rearview mirror, it says, things that you see in this mirror are so much further back than they really are, but it's not. T-Rex he's nipping at the back of your T-Rex, every time your car jumps, that's the little paw. You're like, oh, man, the T-Rex is way down the road. No, he's not. He's getting on the back. He's on your trunk. They got a different kind
to your point about Cantor, what issue did Cantor lose on? Immigration.
That's right.
I think that's one of those things. If Donald Trump
spent too much time in Washington, D.C., hung out with the Wall Street boys too long.
And
got him a good gig, but,
it could be the issue that Trump wins on.
Yeah, and that could have been one of the races that Trump was paying attention to. And he said, oh, my goodness, there is so much unspoken passion here. And I'm going to tap into that. What are the things that people are so angry about? They feel so hamstrung that they can't talk about openly. And what's the thing that most frustrates people? Immigration, you know, and political correctness. And then the other one is their personal economy.
Todd, it's interesting. In the polls now, it shows Trump losing to Hillary Clinton. But if he were the nominee, you wonder how much that would change. If the party realizes they have to get behind him and the American people realize they have to make a decision between two people.
Well, I think so. And look, I think the American people are going to get behind Trump, especially in the southern states. You know, we saw early on when he did that, he did a thing in Mobile, Alabama, and had tens of thousands of people come out early in this campaign. So I think there's something going on there, and I think Trump is really resonating with people.
Well, this has been so fun. I wish it'd go on all night long.
Do you really?
I really kind of do. You guys are so much fun.
We got to do it again.
That's right.
We'll do it again.
A lot of big nights ahead.
Indeed.
A lot of debates coming up. Todd, Charles, Kennedy, Tom, thanks for being with us. All right, that's it for us. Thanks for watching our Fox News Debate Digital Special. Have a good night, everyone.